Hi, it's Jen Richler, here to kick off the spring season of Can We Talk, the podcast of the Jewish Women's Archive, where gender, history, and Jewish culture meet. This winter, I traveled to Israel with a group of women leaders of Boston Jewish nonprofits on a trip co-organized by the Jewish Women's Archive. We had a mission: to understand October 7th and its aftermath through the eyes of Israeli women. We wanted to know how women in Israel are coping months into the war and how women leaders are responding. Over a whirlwind 3 days, we crisscrossed the country in a minibus and packed into conference rooms to hear from many different women. Israel's first female trauma surgeon who treated people injured in the attack and returning hostages. Women leading relief efforts for evacuees from the north and south. Mothers, daughters, and sisters of people kidnapped by Hamas, whose eyes were red from exhaustion and crying. There were many moments on this trip when I felt deep sadness, even despair. But there were also moments that gave me hope. In this episode of Can We Talk, we're focusing on women we met who are working to build a shared society for Arabs and Jews in Israel. These women are Jewish and Palestinian citizens of Israel, including Bedouins from the Negev, and they've continued to work together even in the thick of this divisive war. We hear from Hanan Alsanah, a Bedouin woman who co-founded the first joint Arab-Jewish relief center after October 7th, Ayesha Ziadna, Khitam Abu Bader, and Racheli Geffen, who help run the center, and Sally Abed, a Palestinian social justice activist. They talk about how the war has affected their lives, work, and identity, the unique qualities women bring to social justice work, and their vision for a shared future. On a sunny morning in Jerusalem, we met Hanan Alsanah, a leader in the Bedouin community. She's a lawyer with Itach Maki, Women Lawyers for Social Justice, where she directs the Center for Bedouin Women's Rights. After October 7th, she co-founded a Jewish Arab relief center in the southern city of Rahat, the largest Bedouin community in the world. It's staffed by Jewish and Arab Israelis and has delivered food and other essentials to hundreds of Jewish and Bedouin families affected by the Hamas attack and the ongoing war. Before she talked about her work, she told us about her family and the roots of her activism.
My father is very traditional Bedouin, and all our, my sister and my mother the same way. I am the youngest in the family. I'm the only one who managed and succeed to get education in academic in the university. And it's not because I am the clever. It's only because I was Mardanit.
Hanan rebelled against all her family's expectations, that she cover her hair, marry her cousin, and, if she insisted on working, become a teacher. Her dream was to become a lawyer and to work for social justice and greater opportunities for Bedouin women. And that's exactly what she did. She earned her law degree and joined the staff of Itach Maki. She designed courses for thousands of Bedouin women in literacy, education, and small business. She started with the larger Bedouin centers like Rahat, but eventually expanded her work to the more remote, less developed villages. At first, some people were skeptical that she could pull it off.
They said, you will not succeed. It's impossible. You cannot do it because the community there, they are very close and very, very traditional. They will not allow you to work with their women. Told them, I know from where I came, they are not going to be more difficult than my family. Let me deal with them. Every time I have been told that it's impossible, you cannot do it. But I prove that it's possible. We can do it as a woman. And all the time I feel there is nothing impossible until October 7. But in October 7 morning, I said, that's it. Maybe there is something impossible.
The impossibility of the situation struck her early that morning when her WhatsApp group started blowing up with reports about attacks happening in real time. Messages poured in from people in her community desperate for help, and Hanan realized something.
The state is not there. If we got this message, the state is not there. The people expect from the citizens, the civilians, to come and save them. And from this minute, Arab and Jews They go to the Otef Azza, work together to save lives, and work together to transport the survivor to save a place, to Yam HaMelech, to Eilat, to Beersheba, and hundreds. They work hard for many hours. And they opened also, the Bedouin community opened their house for the survivor. And nobody know about this. They know about only the attack, the victim, and they thought that the war between Arab and Jews. And it's not. It's not between Arab and Jews. We are a Bedouin. We are citizens of Israel. We are Arab. But we also have family in Gaza. Part of our tribes live in Gaza. And they are also victims, and our heart with them in this war. But on the second hand, we cannot stand and not help our neighbors, our partner in Israel. Because sometimes your close neighbor more close to you than your brother who live far from you. But 2 days after, we found out that we also have victims.
At least 17 Bedouins were killed on October 7th. Some were shot by Hamas terrorists who had infiltrated the border, and others were killed by incoming rockets. That's because many Bedouin villages lack rocket sirens, bomb shelters, and the protection of Israel's Iron Dome system.
You should see what happened in October of 7. We couldn't see nothing less than darkness. But we, through our project, we managed and succeed to see this point of light through our emergency shared
emergency response.
Shared emergency room in Rahat.
Hanan started the shared emergency room with a Jewish woman named Shir Nosatsky, whom she met during the protests against the government's proposed judicial reforms. Hundreds of volunteers, Jewish and Arab, have come to Rahat from all over the country to pack boxes of food and other supplies for people in the surrounding communities, also Jewish and Arab, who are struggling in the aftermath of the attack.
When Arab and Jews go together to this family and give them the food, we show them that there is a way to solve and overcome this problem. We give them a pocket of hope. We have to discuss and work together and bring the real democracy to Israel. What we have today, it's not democracy. And many people tell me, how you manage? Because everybody this. In the beginning, the first week, we feel afraid. Arab, they don't want to talk with the Jews, and the Jews don't want to talk Arab. But you know what is the secret? The secret that it's come from two women. I believe in the power of the women. And I believe when women want to do something, they can do it. If you go to the Knesset, every ministry office, you will not see women there. They disappear in the last 3 years. We cannot hear their voice. And I told everyone that I met, look what happened in October of 7. Who saved the people? The NGOs together with the civilians. It means that we have also opportunity here.
We got to see an example of Jewish and Arab Israeli women seizing that opportunity together when we went to Rahat and visited the relief center Hanan helped build. On our way in, we passed rooms with piles of supplies: diapers, baby formula, warm blankets. We headed to a conference room where we met Ayesha Ziadna, Khitam Abu Bader, and Racheli Geffen, 3 of the women who run the Joint Relief Center, or Chamal Meshutaf in Hebrew. Rahat is a city of just over 70,000, one of the handful of Bedouin communities recognized by the Israeli government. There are dozens of unrecognized villages that lack basic services like water and electricity, in addition to the bomb shelters and rocket sirens I mentioned before. Ayesha Ziadna is Bedouin and directs the Arab Jewish Center for Empowerment, Equality, and Cooperation. It's an organization led by Jews and Arabs that works to build a shared and equal society for the two groups in the Negev. She started by talking about what the Relief Center meant to her.
since the 7th of October, it is quite hard to gather people together. And it was like a call for people who still believe in hope and still believe that we can live together to work things out.
Sitting next to Ayesha is Khitam Abu Bader. She's also Bedouin and works for Desert Stars, a leadership and empowerment organization for Bedouins in the Negev.
We believe that Jewish and Arab in the Negev should be like, this is the opportunity that the world should see by the Hamal Mushtaf. And we want to be part of that because we believe in our agenda of Desert Stars that the agenda says that Arab and Jewish, they stays here. There is no one going to move. There is no one gonna like moving to other country, and we should find the way to live together. Racheli, she is a great partner that she come every Wednesday. We shout about each other, but we are doing a great job.
Racheli is sitting to Khitam's left. She's Jewish and works for an organization called Have You Seen the Horizon Lately, which takes its name from a song by Yoko Ono. She brings up the confused and tense atmosphere in the days after October 7th.
In the midst of all this chaos, it was easy for all the more extremist elements in our government to kind of try to fan the flames and say it's like a war between Jews and Arabs, and it's not. It's a war between forces of good and merchants of death. That's what it is. But in the first days where everything was just, it was hard to breathe, coming here became such a relief and a breath of air. And at the beginning we felt uncomfortable to admit it, but now I'll say it out loud, it's really fun. For us, that's the main goal. So people can see that not all is lost. We still have this, we're in this together.
When men like Ben-Gvir and Bibi and Smotrich are trying to set us apart and say it's stuff like Arabs and Jews should have like a fight together, and seeing women here try to gather everyone around, being able to work with someone, that is really something, a specialty that women have. I think it's one of the abilities of women to think about everything around them, to have really this kind of compassion, and yet combine it with being able to take decision, thinking about everything around.
We lack the feeling of entitlement that a lot of men have. We are forced to learn to be more flexible and more imaginative and try to find solutions, because we gain very little by digging our heels. I don't know, I feel like maybe a little less ego, a little more like let's get shit done orientation. There needs to be a way bigger like transformation than just putting some women in leadership roles, but I think it does make a difference.
We had a lot of lists for people who wanted to come and volunteer, basically, and I had to like really choose among them, and they were really upset with me that you have chosen those and not us. It was the only place that they can kind of
feel good.
Yeah, feel good, and they would leave with the kind of experience of doing something.
Even with this sense of shared purpose, Ayesha and Khitam also acknowledge the ways the war is affecting them as Palestinian citizens.
It's quite difficult when Arabs speak about what is happening in the country right now, because you feel there's no freedom of speech, and it's going stricter and being harder and harder.
Since October 7th, the Israeli government has cracked down on speech, especially in Arab communities. Dozens of Palestinians have been arrested, and university students have been suspended for social media posts and other comments that allegedly showed support for Hamas. Ayesha says it's hard to feel like you belong as a Bedouin.
You feel like you are the child who's not wanted from their father or from their mother, and you are in divorce kind of process. You're feeling that way. Because for the Palestinians, you're not Palestinian enough, and for the Israelis, you're not Israeli enough. So you are kind of the one who is not wanted in the whole scenario.
And the Arab countries hate us more.
So we're like traitors to the Arab countries, traitors to everyone. And not mentioning that a lot of Arabs here have families in Gaza Strip. But also they maybe have also family members who are in the IDF or the police. And maybe they have somebody who got killed. So it's so bizarre, feeling a lot of hope and happy coming here, and then going at night trying to sleep and having these kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but I'm speechless with the stuff that I feel when I'm trying to go to sleep. It will take a lot of time healing from that thing.
I think what concerns me personally, it's the Jewish and Arab relationship. What will be after that? We felt like I did feel that we are working so hard to making this working out. All the story of the Jewish and the Arab relationship, took us a long of years to be like part of the Israeli society, like going to the university, and a long years, and we feel that we are going to start from the basic, and this is very devastating thing.
A few days after October 7th, there was a piece in Haaretz, an interview with a therapist who specializes on national trauma. And he said that one of the worst things about witnessing crimes against humanity is that it makes you lose faith in humanity. And that the only treatment is to be exposed immediately to abundance of humanity, which is kind of the idea behind the Joint Center.
Ayesha, Khitam, and Racheli's work is an example of a shared response to the crisis of October 7th. We also met with a woman who has been working for years to build a just, shared society in Israel. Sally Abed is with Standing Together, a grassroots movement of Israelis, Jewish and Arab, fighting for peace and social justice, including an end to the occupation. It was founded in the aftermath of the 2014 Gaza war. When we met her in Jaffa, she talked about October 7th as a turning point for the movement.
A lot of conceptions were shattered within Israeli society, and we had to really think again, okay, what's the main question? Because in many ways, social movements are really about public narrative, right? And about who's the we, who's us, and who's they, who are we working against, who are we fighting against, who's benefiting from the status quo, right? And we found ourselves really in a very impossible rhetoric right now.
Sally mentioned the signs you see everywhere in Israel since October 7th. On bus stops, high-rises, banners running at the bottom of the TV news. They say, Beyachad nenatzeach, together we will win.
Who's biyachad? Who's the togetherness? V'ma ze nenatzeach? What's the image of victory? What is it? No one knows. No one knows. Really, ask the average Israeli right now, what is their image of victory of this war? No one knows. And it's not their fault. They don't know because our leadership doesn't know. They have some ideas. They have some messianic, some of them have some messianic fantasies of what this victory looks like, right? But it has nothing to do with our lives and our future and our security. So we looked, left and right, and we're like, there's no one, literally no one talking about peace right now. And we really started asking ourselves, what's our role in all of this? As a movement, and we understood that we are going to be the next peace movement. But it's not going to be merely, a peace movement that's going to talk about peace as a concept, but it's really a peace movement that's going to try to renovate how we can rebuild popular demand for peace within Israeli society out of self-interest and not out of moral lecturing. Because the Israeli society right now is deeply traumatized, deeply hurting, terrified. And in many ways, according to polls, the Jewish public actually is not aware of the fact that Palestinians are afraid. We are a society that has endured very heavy persecution, very heavy, incitements against us in the last 3 months. Not just, but really very heavy in the last 3 months. We are extremely scared with so much guns everywhere in our mixed cities. In Jaffa, you can go right now and find people with their guns, like really crazy lunatics who are going around patrolling with their guns. And we are really deeply unsafe. And we feel like we're next. We're next. And the Jewish public doesn't have even the capacity to understand us, the people who live with them, their colleagues, their peers, their neighbors, their friends. So how are they gonna even understand the Palestinian experience in Gaza or in the West Bank? And in many ways, also for us as Palestinian leadership in the movement, I find myself fighting for a society that is, completely overlooking me at best, or really delegitimizing my existence as a Palestinian here. At worst, it can be much worse than that. We are getting physical threats.
In Israel, standing together gets harassed from the far right. In the diaspora, Sally said it's the far left that attacks the movement for, quote-unquote, legitimizing the state of Israel. Sally and other leaders have been the target of slurs.
Normalizer. I'm a Palestinian fighting for my life, like on the ground right now. Like, what are you talking about? One of the things that I like to say to them, especially now, I think Palestinian liberation movement has finally received unprecedented recognition and legitimacy around the world. It's crazy what's happening. Yeah, it never happened before. To have like hundreds of thousands of people like across the world, like with Palestinian flag, like that's not something that's seen before. That's exactly the moment where people need to have the responsibility, to assume the responsibility to understand, okay, what does it mean? What does it mean, free Palestine? And what does it take? And I don't judge. I think many Palestinians, especially in the diaspora, are extremely traumatized as well. But it really requires a lot of radical empathy into understanding that the Jewish Israeli people are like real people and not like this fascist, oppressive, colonial entity. It's not an entity, it's people. And just even if you take the side, the human lovey-dovey moral question of the Israeli people and seeing their humanity, you need to understand it strategically. It's a requirement. You need to understand the Israeli psyche and the Israeli reality as they see it, so you can actually change it, so they become your allies. If Israelis don't build the political will to end the occupation, it won't end. We need Palestinian leadership that also has the political will, to really acknowledge the right for the Jewish people to exist on this land freely, and with security. That's something that needs to happen. And in many ways, for decades, it's something that has been, methodologically prevented by Israel and overlooked by the world. Let's not deal with that. We don't need leadership right now. They're either incarcerated or assassinated, right? When I talk about liberation for the Palestinian people, by the way, it's much more than ending the occupation, right? Because, ending the occupation is not going to liberate a Palestinian woman or Palestinian LGBT. Liberation is just so much more than just ending the military control of Israel. And also in many ways, for me, historic justice is about acknowledging the injustices that happen. And for us as Palestinians here, to make sure that we are also equal in our homeland. Our biggest hope and our biggest strength is the one weak point of the right now. which is the fact that they literally have no will and no capacity to provide us with any answers about our future. And that's the one thing that we are able to provide, which is really a different kind of vision. I think many Israelis are in such distress because the right wing is so effective right now. They're feeding on the trauma, on the fear, and they're so effective into silencing, into sanctioning anyone who would say anything other than biyachad ninatzeach. And it's very effective. So the question is, how do you create legitimacy? We're encouraging the center. We want them to start talking about political solution. Once this kind of center starts to talk about it, it becomes legitimate to talk about it. The Israeli public for many years now has been methodologically convinced, fed, there's no partner, there's no way. We have to control them, we have to incarcerate them, we have to kill them, we have to. So we are safe, but we're not. We're not safe. And October 7th, that conception shattered. But from the deepest crises comes also the very, very clearest visions. Really, I have never had such a clear vision of what our mission is. We're fighting for our lives. We're fighting for our future.
That was Sally Abed. Since we met her, she's won a seat on the Haifa City Council in Israel's municipal elections. You also heard from Hanan Alsanah, Ayesha Ziadna, Khitam Abu Bader, and Racheli Geffen. Special thanks to Combined Jewish Philanthropies for sponsoring the mission to Israel, and to the Fuchsberg Center for coordinating it. Thank you for joining us for Can We Talk, the podcast of the Jewish Women's Archive. Our team includes Nahani Rouse and Judith Rosenbaum. Our theme music is by Girls in Trouble. JWA is collecting stories about Jewish women's experiences since October 7th. Visit jwa.org/October7 for question prompts. Submissions can be in writing or audio in whatever language you choose. You can find Can We Talk at jwa.org/podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Don't forget to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I'm Jen Richler. Until next time.